Well, look, I mean, I'm not a traditional guy that takes things from any religious sect, any tradition, any culture. I think when you do that, you tend to divide an audience. I mean, I'm a scientist, and I think science is the contemporary language of mysticism. I think science demystifies the mystical. And the moment you start talking religion or culture or tradition, you divide an audience, but science creates community. So you combine a little quantum physics with a little neuroscience, a little neuroendocrinology, a little psychoneuroimmunology, a little epigenetics. All of those sciences point the finger at possibility, but not in an intimidating way, in a simple way. So our meditations that we teach are not meditations where you're going to sit and contemplate your navel. It's not just what we do. We're science-based. We know what words, we know what things, what activities create more coherence in the brain and the heart. We know what it takes to alter a person's states. We've measured it thousands and thousands of times. So in our meditations, we start off by telling everybody, look, you already know how to do this. You just forgot because you're too busy and too distracted. And most people, to finish the thought from our last conversation, wait for crisis or trauma or disease or diagnosis or loss to finally change. It's got to get so bad that they no longer feel like themselves any longer, that they can see what they look like for the first time. So everybody that's listening on this call has done something great in their life. And what did they do? They got a wild idea. They got a new idea. They asked themselves a question like, what would it be like to be healthy? What would it be like to be wealthy? What would it be like to be in a new relationship? What would it be like to be happy? The moment they ask that question, they turn on the creative center in their brain. They turn on their frontal lobe. Now, the frontal lobe's got to get busy creating. So it's got to use the raw materials in the brain. It's got to use the circuits of things you've learned intellectually or philosophically and the things you've experienced in your life. So the frontal lobe's got to answer the question. So it looks out over the landscape of the brain and it starts activating different circuits. And when it seamlessly pieces it together, you get a vision in your mind that's called an intention. Now, a passionate person who has that vision, the thought in their mind becomes the experience. They start to feel the emotion as if they're already there ahead of the event. And when you combine a clear intention with an elevated emotion, you're changing your energy, you're changing your neurocircuitry, you're changing your chemistry, you're changing your genetic expression. You're no longer living in your past. In that moment, you're living in your future. So being defined by a vision of the future is what our work is about instead of the memories of the past. So what should they do then? Write down the choices you got to make and make sure you commit them to memory. Review the things you got to do. Review the behaviors. Think about the experiences, your goals in that future and how they feel. And keep reviewing them and keep your conscious mind on them. Now, the most important thing is to review the thoughts that you don't want to think. You know, I can't, it's too hard, I'll never change, this won't work for me, it's my mother's fault, it's my father's fault, it's my ex's fault, I don't feel like it, whatever it is. Write those thoughts down and become so conscious of those unconscious thoughts that you would never go unconscious or believe them again. Write down the choices you got to stop making. Think about the things you no longer want to do, the habits you got to break, the experiences you got to stay away from that are connected to certain people and certain places, and the emotions that are going to bring you to a lower denominator. And you got to become so conscious of that 95% of where most people live that you won't go unconscious and return back to the old self. That's the work right there. So that process is what we all innately are wired to do anyway. It's just that you got to make the time to do it, and that's the key right there. Most people don't want to make the time. Look, I mean, you have to think about this. I mean, the fact that you can think about what you're thinking about makes you wonder who's doing the observing of those thoughts, right? The fact that you can be aware of what you're thinking means you're not the thought. You're the executor or the controller of that thought. You're the consciousness that's executing that thought. So most people think, well, just because I have a thought, it's true. That's not true. Just because you have a thought doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Emotions and feelings are a record of the past. So if you're feeling the familiar emotions every single day of unhappiness or unworthiness or insecurity, then you're starting your day from the past. And if those emotions are driving your thoughts and you can't think greater than how you feel, then you're thinking in the past. And for the most part, your day is going to stay the same. So the first step, without a doubt, Ben, is getting people the right information. The more knowledge you have and understanding how you work and how your brain and body works in a simple way, the better you have the operating manual to take care of yourself. So then we sit people in our workshops sometimes, and they're going to sit there for a period of time. And they're going to sit there, and I'm not going to let them get up. And you know what? They're going to have to get beyond their fear. They're going to have to get beyond their hatred. They're going to get beyond their prejudice, beyond their anger. They got to get beyond it. And yeah, well, you could say, yeah, it's that person that caused it. Okay, well, let's take that person and put them in a straitjacket, duct tape them, and shoot them up to the moon. So now what? Now what are you going to do? You still, on some level, have to make some type of substantial change. So we teach people that knowledge is the forerunner to experience. The right information and understanding it, understanding how you work and all of that, is going to prepare you for a better experience in your life. That's the name of the game. So then, once the person has that knowledge and information, then let's set up the conditions for them to apply it. So most people, when they reach that crisis point, when they're sick or they're out of balance or whatever, that's the point when they decide to change. My message is, why wait? Take 45 minutes every day and just write down the things you want in your life and start feeling the emotions of how it would happen. And then see if you can stay in that state your entire day. And if you can, you should start seeing synchronicities and coincidences and opportunities and doors opening for you, because you're not the same person any longer. And that's cool, because you don't have to be a physicist or a neuroscientist or an academic or a saint or a priest or a rabbi or any none. You just have to be a common person. Just like you learn any skill, once you learn how to do it, it gets easier and easier. And that's what I want for people, to make it easy. When you're living life, a lot of your attention is on your outer environment. And what is your outer environment made up of? Bodies, people, things, objects, places, and time. A lot of our attention is on our body, how we're feeling. Are we hungry? Are we tired? We're angry? We're frustrated? We have pain? And a lot of our attention is on time, like how much time do we have? Where do we have to go? What do we have to do? And it's the act of keeping your attention on your body, your environment, and time that all of a sudden keeps you separate from your inner world of thoughts and feelings. So that we love this idea of teaching people how to sit down and disconnect from their outer environment. If you're listening to soft music and you have your blindfolds on or your eyes closed, you're less likely to be influenced by your outer world. Mm-hmm. If you're sitting still and you're not getting up and moving and feeling and experiencing and tasting and smelling and eating, then less information is coming into you as well. And if you're not thinking about where you need to be tomorrow or what you have to do later or what happened yesterday, but you're in the present moment, meditation is the perfect way to make your inner world more real than your outer world. Now you can execute thoughts. Now you can drive your attention in a certain way. You can become aware while you're sitting there that you're sitting there and all of a sudden you're getting angry for no reason. Well, what's up with that? You're just sitting there and you're angry. That should tell you that your body on some level is craving that emotion. So when people start to understand they may be addicted to anger, and I'm allowing them to sit there and work with that anger and keep bringing their body back to the present moment, they're training their body. Just like you're training in your gym, you're training your body to no longer be the mind. And the act of doing that over and over again is you're training the animal. And sooner or later, the animal's going to go, I'm not the mind. You're the mind. I'm going to let go. And when it finally surrenders, the person gets a biological upgrade. And that biological upgrade happens in a matter of seconds. So I love this because you don't have you can't tell me you're too old to do this. You can't tell me you're too out of shape to do this. You can't tell me you're too sick to do this. You can't tell me your past was too brutal to do this, because I've seen transformation in all shapes and sizes. So if 95%, Ben, of who we are by the time we're 35 years old is a set of memorized behaviors, automatic unconscious habits, emotional reactions, beliefs, perceptions, and attitudes that function subconsciously like a computer program, then in order for us to change, then we got to dive into that operating system and become conscious of it. And the word meditation literally means to become familiar with. So you got to become familiar with those thoughts, those emotions, those behaviors. become so familiar and conscious of them that you would never go unconscious again. And then you got to decide what thoughts you do want to fire and wire in your brain. You got to rehearse mentally who you're going to be. And the act of rehearsing and thinking about who you're going to be, planning your behaviors, begins to install the neurological hardware in your brain to look like that experience has already happened. Now your brain is no longer a record of the past. Now it's a map to the future. Now, if you keep doing it, firing and wiring, the hardware becomes a software program. And the next thing you know, you're thinking like a happy person. You're acting like an unlimited person because you would put the circuits in place. And then the last step is to teach your body emotionally what that future is going to feel like before it happens. And if you keep cultivating those states of mind and body, neurologically and chemically, it's going to begin to become familiar to you. And you're going to go from one personality to another. And the disease or the problem is going to exist in the old personality, and you're literally someone else. And the person doesn't have to visualize their cancer going away. They'll just tell you the cancer was in the other person. I'm somebody else. Can't live here. And the disease naturally goes away. So it's a side effect of a change. I mean, I have sat with my body, Ben, for hours, and I have watched my mind run all over the place. And there are certain thoughts that you really want to believe in because they're part of you. But when you start really overcoming your own personal limitations, and you're no longer knee-jerking to the people and conditions in your life because you've been sitting there in your meditation, and your body's throwing the kitchen sink at you, and you're just saying, that's all you got, that's it, I'm gonna keep going. Sooner or later, when you break free from the chains of those habits and those emotions, and your body begins to liberate energy, we've measured this, and you start feeling joyful and free, and your heart starts to open, and you're in love with life, and you're moved, and this is a feeling that's not coming from anywhere outside of you, it's coming from within you. I guarantee you'll stand in the presence of your greatest adversary, your biggest betrayer, the person that threw you under the bus, and you'll look that person in the eye, and you will have nothing but love for them, because you'll see a part of yourself you used to be that you no longer are. And the moment that happens, you no longer belong to your past, you belong to your future. And now you see it as a lesson instead of like holding a grudge. You free them and you free yourself, and you're on your way. And that's called evolution. We only complain about our life when it's not working. Nobody complains about their life when they're joyful. They just don't. You only complain about your life when you're angry or bitter or frustrated. So if a person starts working on regulating different states, then they'll say, God, I feel so great. I'm not going to lose this feeling because of that person. I'm just going to see them, wow, I used to be like that. I just totally get them. And now you're free. And I think that's the beginning of unconditional love.
We have to get the right knowledge and apply it, as Joe Dispenza would say. But the key here is to become conscious. And it's impossible to become conscious with so many distractions. I mean, television, tablets, social network, stress at work. We are constantly on the autopilot. We barely think anything consciously. It's like this world is designed to capture us unconscious. This is our challenge, to overcome distractions and become conscious, fully aware. That is the road to great and adventurous life. I hope you loved this video by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and you will do everything in your power to start creating consciously. When you create something consciously, deliberately, you will be amazed and empowered. That will be the fuel you needed all the time. If you like this message by Joe Dispenza, share it with your friends and give your thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and even join our channel. Stay good and have a great day.